finest movie debate. And tonight, we're talking 2016's Sing Street.
I am Joe.
I'm Ethan, and one of us is going to love it, one of us is going to hate it.
Let the coin decide their fate.
I hate it.
I love it! And hey guys, don't start a band and run away to England. There's spoilers ahead.
Fuck spoilers.
What? Oh yeah, spoilers. Before the spoiler thing.
Okay, this movie is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with a 97%. So, Ethan, this first question is going to be for you since you hate the film.
Sure do.
This comes from Blake Howard of graffitiwithpunctuation.net. He says, Carney really blindsided me with just how perfectly he realizes the way that a younger brother idolizes their older brother. And that seems to be a central theme in the movie. So can you comment on the brother relationship and its role in the film, whether it elevated it, took away from the actual movie?
I think central theme of the movie gives
I'm sorry. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I think central theme really gives it way too much credit when that is really only just like 1.5 scenes in the entire movie. That's, an hour and a half plus long. I think that the brother, yes, is in the movie a lot, and yes, a lot of his tastes he gives unto his younger brother. However, that younger brother makes it his own. He writes his own songs. He gives it to his brother to criticize. But ultimately, his younger brother is the one making all the decisions and is the one who chooses to go after the girl, who's the one who chooses to start the band, who's the one who chooses to use that band to defy against the school. The older brother has one monologue at the end of the movie that, yeah, that's a fine monologue for an older brother to give a younger brother, and it summarizes a good sibling relationship. However, it's a small part of this movie that is otherwise about a bunch of pretentious, failing musicians being way too frivolous with all of their awful dreams and basically just accepting an amount of risk that is irresponsible.
Okay, thank you, Ethan. I'm sorry, that's your minute. Thank you. Joe, you have 30 seconds to respond.
There's probably not as many scenes as I would have liked for a central relationship between the two brothers. But at the very beginning, the younger brother, he starts his band, and the first thing they do is they cover a song. So they cover the song and they record it, and he goes and he's really excited about it because they did it. And he shows his brother, and his brother says, "No, fuck that. You need to write your own music. If you want to get the girl, you have to do it yourself with your own thing." So he essentially sets his brother in motion and gives him the confidence to become the musician at the end.
Joe, thank you. That was your 30. Ethan, you have 15 seconds.
Yeah, but that advice could have come from absolutely anybody in his life, anybody in the movie. It does not have to be his brother. It just happened to be his brother because they'd already cast that role, paid this actor, and needed him in a scene.
Okay, Joe, you have a final 15 to respond.
That just ignores the fact that a younger brother idolizes his older brother and will do whatever his brother suggests, and that's exactly what the relationship is. It could not have come from anybody, because if his dad would have told him that, he would have told his dad to go fuck himself.
May I have 5 seconds?
You may have 5 seconds.
I think you're reading too far into it by saying that shows that he idolizes his brother. I don't think that that's in that scene at all.
May I have 5 seconds?
You may have 5 seconds.
I was just mirroring what the review said.
Riveting. Thank you. Okay. Joe, this question is for you. This comes from Dave Jenkins of littlewhitelies.com. He says...
Sounds promising.
Thank you. He says, if Brat Pack deity John Hughes were alive today, you could well imagine him making a film like Sing Street. And also, Carney ladles on the fond period details, backtracked with a selection of toe-tapping ditties, and merely allows the story to go exactly where you expect it to go after about the first 10 minutes. So, how do the periodic details and soundtrack actually elevate the film and set it apart from, one of your favorite movies, The Breakfast Club or 16 Candles? You have 1 minute.
I think it elevates it because it's a period movie. It's a period movie about, and it's essentially because of the economic distress that Ireland's having in this specific period, and how everybody is immigrating to England looking for better work. So that's a central theme in the movie, to where the entire country is under financial stress, and that what's born out of that is essentially this kid rebelling against his parents, rebelling against the school that he's in, because he has to switch schools because they can't afford the school that he's originally in. So he finds himself around these other musicians that actually they're able to build the band. So it's not necessarily just the music that is used for the periodic placement of this movie, but it's also just the times and what this country is happening, what was going on in this country economically. And on top of that, there were so many different kinds of musics with very prominent identities that it was easy for this kid to kind of like go in between each identity to try to find out who he actually was through these other identities.
Thank you, Joe. Ethan, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I won't argue that there's an economic factor to this movie, but I feel like that could have taken place at any time period, at any point in the country. You just have to cherry pick where you want it. And I think they cherry picked the 80s in London and Ireland because they wanted to talk about all of this 80s music being, as this movie puts it, happy sad. It's all depressing as all hell, while at the same time really poppy and upbeat, and that allows it to be really easy and easily emulated. So at the same time, this movie can talk about everything that it's trying to aspire to in this movie, while at the same time can write songs that emulate that style because it's very simple to do.
Okay, Ethan. Joe, you have 15 seconds to respond.
No, yeah, I mean, exactly what Ethan just said. Essentially, you could cherry pick any moment of it, but you couldn't actually cherry pick any economic strife that this country had because you needed that music to tell the deeper theme of the movie. That's why it's very important that they set it in the mid-80s.
Thank you, Joseph. Ethan, you have a final 15 to respond.
I don't think you just said anything with validity at all. I don't think that this movie at all needs to be set in the 80s in order to tell a story about a family struggling with their income.
With that specific music, yes.
This could be set in Brexit and it wouldn't matter. Okay. This could be set in the Ireland independence vote.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to move on to the next question.
No,
I will not be lesser holted. Excuse me, Joe, I'm trying to read a question.
They could have rapped like Hamilton.
Could have a shadow.
Ethan, this question is for you. This comes from Jay Larson from LarsonOnFilms.com. He says, Sing Street is admittedly catnip for anyone who grew up with 80s bands like Duran Duran and The Cure, yet director John Carney invests enough emotional authenticity to make it also work on its own non-nostalgic terms. So for a movie that admittedly relies so heavily on nostalgia, how did Carney actually create a story that holds its own, nostalgia aside? You have 1 minute.
Because it's just stupidly easy to tell a story about kids following their dreams, however foolishly and blindly. Like, everybody can relate to that. Did you ever want to do something else with your life? Great, here's that movie for you. They just put it in the 80s with nostalgic music for you to tap your foot to. That is all this movie is. And to think that it's anything more, some work of genius about how he's tapping into some sort of id of the country and of the time and being some sort of grand professor of all the things that are correct with what we should be doing in our lives, I think that it's ignorant and giving John Carney way more power than he actually deserves.
Okay, thank you. Joe, you have 30 seconds to respond.
No, I feel like this movie, it's a pretty classic coming-of-age movie, but he wanted to tell it from the perspective of this kid's entire life is continually breaking apart because first it opens up with his parents fighting. He's writing songs about his parents fighting. And then he finds out he has to move school. So that facet of his life is upended and changes. And then his parents are getting a divorce. So that's changing. And the only solace he can find is in the music, which is very specific to the 80s with the happy sad, like you were saying.
Thank you, Joe. Ethan, you came in under time on that last question. So I'll give you another 15 to kind of elaborate more clearly what you were trying to say. So you have 30 seconds.
Wonderful, thank you. I was just trying to say that people are giving John Carney more credit when he's basically just tapping into something that is universal of everybody who was ever a child who is now an adult. And to say that you can't pick some other genre of movie or you can't write your own songs that are happy and sad, it has to be set in the 80s, I think is just bullshit.
Okay, thank you. Joe, you have a final 15 seconds.
The reason it's in the 80s is because there's Boy George, there was The Cure, there was
Duran Duran.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking Bowie. There's Bowie. So there's these very specific powerhouse identities that have a whole look that is involved with them, and so it was very easy visually to emulate them.
Okay, Joe, thank you. We're gonna move on to the final question.
Easy, yes.
And this question is for you, Joe.
Thank you.
This comes from Richard Brody of The New Yorker. He says, the band's music, which is composed by John Carney, the movie's writer and director, and Gary Clark, is bland and overproduced. The songs sound like the work of prematurely old teenagers. So, if the characters are supposed to be influenced by 80s new wave style music, do the songs seem accurate, being written to the style that they're going for? You have 1 minute.
Yes. I mean, 100% yes. the music from the 80s is overproduced. Like, that's the sound, that's part of the sound, especially looking back on it retrospectively and looking at the entire catalog of the 80s. Like, a big part of that music was how overproduced it was, and that's why you get grunge and why you get such raw, like, rock music right after that, is because they were trying to disconnect from it. So of course the music needs to be a little overproduced, and of course it's supposed to sound a little amateurish because the characters in this movie are kids. They are 15 and 16 years old. So this guy is essentially complaining that the music is accurate to what the movie needs it to be, and that doesn't make any sense to me. That's such a bullshitty criticism of this movie.
Okay, Ethan, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I actually 100% agree with you. I think that is a bullshit criticism. However, it can go one step further and say that, yeah, this is supposed to be amateurish and a little bit shitty. These are high school kids making music. But the problem is that the movie focuses so much time on their shitty music. You know, you look at like Beck doing the Scott Pilgrim soundtrack, you get like 15 to 30 seconds on those songs, which is what it really should be, with the exclusion of the opening credits. This movie spends half its movie on these shitty songs by shitty high school kids.
Okay, Joe, you have another 15.
I think the songs were catchy. I mean, really, like, yeah, there's like the Arctic Monkeys. So they were 17 and 18 when they like hit the big times. And when you listen to their music from like their early days, they were rough around the edges, and that's exactly what this band in this movie is. You can see the potential talent in this band, so it's fun to listen to because you can see where it's going.
Okay, Joe, thank you. Ethan, you have a final 15 to respond.
I think that's fun to listen to if you had a band in high school, which you did and I did not. And I think that to focus, that's great, good for you, man. I mean, it was a great band, but to focus so much time on that,
Joe, please stop bragging.
Instead of this underdeveloped story, I think you could spend a little bit more time on a story, a little bit more time on some characters, and less time on the half-ass songs, and you probably have a better film.
Okay, thank you. Should we talk about how you actually feel?
Yeah.
Okay, Ethan, we'll start with you. You have 30 seconds.
Ooh, I really love this movie a lot. It celebrates just this complete stupid naivety and innocence of what it is to grow up and what it is to, you know, have a broken home and a fucked up brother who, you know, is also your role model at the same time. It's just a celebration of being a stupid kid, and it fully supports that 100%, embraces it with open arms, and I really find that endearing, grossly irresponsible, but really fun to watch, and it's a fun movie.
Why do you say it's irresponsible?
Well, I mean, encouraging kids, yeah, throw your life away, get on a boat and go to London in the middle of a storm with your girlfriend that you hardly know. Good call.
Yeah, but like, have you watched any sort of art? Like, that's all what movies, like, that's what movies are. Like, follow your dreams.
Yeah,
and shit. Like,
I think that's
boomers told us to do that in real life.
It's wonderful. This movie just sets it up in such a believable situation, and then they go do it, and it seems so irresponsible in the context of the movie, but you can't help but smile because it's fun.
Okay, so Joe, thank you, Ethan. Joe, you have 30 seconds.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like this movie. It follows the formula, and it's a really safe. I'll say it's a safe movie, in that like it's not really going to offend anybody. It's just it's a standard like coming of age movie with some pretty catchy songs, and there's some fun like good moments. You're just like, yeah, he got that guy, like the principal. He's like, yeah, he got that guy, like fuck him, because he's an asshole this whole time. So there's those little moments, but overall, like. It was a little safe. It didn't do a whole lot for me, but I mean, it's a really enjoyable movie. I mean, it's gonna make you smile regardless of whether you love it or not. Like, it's a movie that's gonna make you feel good.
Okay, thank you. And
Want to take a quick sec?
Okay.
Like, I feel like it does get into some heavier moments. They're few and far between, but you know, there's the moments where like he sees his dad sleeping on the floor while his mom's in bed.
Okay.
The whole monologue that we talked about in the beginning with his brother was a fantastic speech and really, I don't know, adult.
No, I liked his brother in the scene where his brother was talking about paving the way for him and how he had to put up with his parents alone for however many years, and because of that, his brother got to skate through unscathed. Like, there were some good moments as far as like troublesome, like brother, and then like the broken home, like you said. So I guess yeah, you're right there, but
they're peppered into an otherwise pretty fluff movie.
Peppered in, so I think they get lost in the fluff, unfortunately.
Oh.
okay, well, Joe, how would you rate this movie?
I'd give it a 7. No thunder.
Okay, Ethan?
7, No Thunder. It's fun. Check it out. It's on Netflix.
Okay, well, where can we find you guys online?
You can email us at extremistmoviedebate@gmail.com if you'd like. You can comment or question below. Unpaid intern Jeff will read comments and questions on air, and we will respond to them. You can find us on Twitter at Extremist Movie, or you can find us on Facebook at Extremist Movie Debate.
Yeah, that's it. You did it, I think, right? Yep, cool.
I think that's all of them. Well, thank you for tuning in, and good night.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Good night.